This is pre-show banter. Even though we are live, we got a fantastic guest tonight. That is Lucia DiGiacomo from Vulcan Pickleball. Next to me in the yellow, as always, Craig Bell. What's up, CB?
I'm scared. I'm scared because I know we're on, so we should be on. I'm in my yellow shirt, AJ.
You are. You're looking bright, man.
I'm trying to make sure that we are on. I just want to make sure that all...
Okay. He's doing a couple important things for the feed.
Yes.
Me, I just want just to glow a little bit. I got to talk to one of my absolute favorite touring professionals. That's Jay DeVilliers, and he's got a quote about tonight's guests. He says, Lucia has been an incredible addition to Team Vulcan, so helpful in everything she does. I'm so glad that we are part of the same team. And that's the endorsement from clearly my favorite touring pro in the world. So we're going to have a great time with our guest tonight, and hopefully that sets the tone. CB, what do you got? You want to get this thing started?
Let's go, James Scott Campbell. Let's get it going.
Friends, to another episode of the At the Net podcast, powered by Tex-Mex Productions. Working the soundboards in the back of the house are our producers, D-Mac and Dave Bray. Time to say hello to your hosts, Craig Bell and AJ Shabria, as they're about to take us through 3 sets of tennis, talking life and all the news as it seems to them. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Bell.
Thanks to our At the Net podcast girl, that is always the convivial Margot Carter, right?
That she is. The only problem I have is she recorded it and it said 3 sets of tennis, and tonight it is 3 games of the pickleball, baby.
That's right. Well, we'll have Margot do that also.
Of course.
But we appreciate her for that fascinating. We have a fascinating, the word of the night, fascinating. I'm real interested in this guest that we have coming up here in a second. Introduction and welcome, fans of the great game of pickleball tonight. You're listening to Season 1, Episode 126. Can you believe that? 126. What's that add up to? 9. Did you get that? 126. Yeah, I got that. That's Oklahoma math right there working for you, baby, right there. Of At the Net podcast with AJ Chabry, always on my left, right?
And to my right, the great Craig Bell.
And we are talking the great game of pickleball tonight as it seems
to us.
There are seams in pickleballs, I think.
There are, and I was about to say the whole thing, because there's holes in the pickleball.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So we're okay with the intro right there.
We like it.
Thanks also go out to our good amigos at Tex-Mex Productions. That would be one Darian D. Mac McBrayer, and we did have a brain sighting tonight. So
that's right. You FaceTimed with the producer.
Yes, from back of the house, you were on the soundboards. Well, really, I'm on the soundboards tonight, I guess, and making us look like holograms. We're holograms tonight. John Yondell sent us some money so we can be holograms tonight, right? Is that correct?
I like it.
But we're not Memorex either, right?
We're not, but okay. I do love getting a check from companies like that. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Also, be sure to like and follow us on Facebook. Actually, people are watching Facebook and YouTube tonight, Instagram, plus check out our good work on Fireside, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Breaker, CastBox, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Spotify. I did it again.
Nice.
One breath. Basically, it's all the important communication sites the kids find popular today, right?
Right on.
Yep. And if you'd like to read the opening intro, like the very convivial Margot Carter, and just hit us up on some digits, right?
Yeah, you can send me a demo tape. We'll tweak it and figure it out. Love to use it.
So speaking of fascinating tonight, our guest this evening is from a fascinating world that's really the fastest growing sport in the whole, maybe, I know it's US of A, maybe the world too. I don't know. But we'll learn tonight from Lucia DiGiacomo with Vulcan Pickleball. Welcome to the At the Net podcast, Lucia.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Lucia, thank you. Such a delight getting to know you in the pre-show banter, and I know we're ready for a fun 3 games tonight.
Did you know that it was National Pickleball Day on Monday, August the 8th? So I wanted to wish Lucia a belated happy National Pickleball Day. It was Monday, the 8th of August. Is that correct?
I believe so, because we did a fun flash sale. So, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, I got a couple of dad jokes for you really fast. Did you hear about the pickleball player who called his serve a Dairy Queen?
A Dairy Queen.
It was soft serve.
Soft serve.
Bada bing, bada boom. Why did Tom charge the pickleball net?
Why did Tom charge the net?
Because he was out of cash. And last one, here we go, everybody. I'll be at Friday night at the Laugh Factory in Addison, Texas. Where do pickleball players go for their first formal dance?
The
The pickleball.
The pickleball.
All right, sorry about that. So I just had to divert. I found those today. I couldn't. I had about 10 more. But
and folks at home, you need to know those weren't just dad jokes. He is 4 times a dad. He's quadruple dad magnitude.
Well, I get one more joke then, right? Because I got 4 kids. So.
That's right.
No, that's all right. But
something tells me you're going to sneak something in later on.
I might just have to do that. But Lucia, no, sorry about that. I diverted off the track there, the road, and we went into the ditch. So, but I'm bringing it back. Have you heard those jokes before?
I haven't.
Well, so you can use those.
I appreciated them.
Well, Dairy
I'm
Queen.
going to use them, yeah.
The Dairy Queen one's very popular. Do you have Dairy Queen in Arkansas?
We do, yeah.
There you go. It's a soft serve.
Yep, we do. I mean, I haven't been there in like 20 years, but
since
I see it.
grade school. Yeah.
So, but glad to have you aboard. Hot Springs, Arkansas's finest citizen.
That's right.
Is Lucia DiGiacomo right there. You're in Hot Springs proper, right? Do you live in the town of Hot Springs?
Yeah, I'm in Hot Springs.
Wow. That is a beautiful touristy, but also down home kind of town, right?
Yeah, it is. Have you been?
I've been. It's kind of both. Yeah. Even my parents have been. They love driving up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's got yeah, you're right. A nice mixture of like a touristy fun getaway, but also being cozy and small and intimate. So yeah, it's a great blend of a lot of wonderful things.
That is great. Well, first game, we're going to talk about your background in not just pickleball, but just in general. So you grew up, where did you grow up? And then you went to Ole Miss. Tell us about that.
So I grew up in Benton, really, which is like 20 minutes outside of Hot Springs, right in between Little Rock and Hot Springs. But I went to high school here in Hot Springs at a private school. That was called Crossgate. It used to be Second Baptist. So a lot of people are familiar with that one. And we were homeschooled. My younger brother and I were homeschooled until I was 15. And one of the main reasons for that is because we played tennis so much. And so I was taking a lot of private lessons in Little Rock primarily. So being in Benton was a nice middle ground, drive wise. And took some private lessons here in Hot Springs as well from a gentleman that Craig and I have chatted about. Is it Victor? Victor Halifax, I believe is his last name?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and Jimbo Hobson, which I don't know if you guys know him. He's an icon.
Legend, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so I grew up here in Hot Springs, went to school here in Hot Springs, and then I was actually planning on going to Baylor. I was actually enrolled in Baylor. And about 4 weeks before school started, my dad, our family was really good friends with Houston Nutt, who was the football coach at the University of Arkansas, and he had just accepted his position at Ole Miss. And The Blind Side had just come out, that movie, and it was like my favorite movie at the time. And so my dad, who loved the idea of him having a friend at the college I was going to, was like, let's just drive down to Ole Miss, but just for one weekend. We're just going to drive down there, and if you like it, then maybe you'll switch schools and you'll go there. And if you don't, then you can still go to Baylor. And so we went down there, and I don't know how he talked me into it, but he did. So I pulled out of Baylor. I enrolled at Ole Miss last minute, and there I was.
Amazing. What a great salesman in his own interests of having.
Exactly. That's what he does for a living. So
he does. He's a salesman. I can feel it.
Yeah.
And he wanted his young daughter to be among friends, among an uncle figure.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that's huge, yeah. So tell us about growing up as a tennis player, and maybe get into how you got into pickleball too.
Yeah, so my older brother, Christopher, was an incredible tennis player. He, in fact, the coaches here that are at the country club now, which is where Victor was the head coach, one of the coaches, Dylan, was talking to me just the other day about how incredible it was to watch my brother win state and just how amazing he was. He went to Baylor also, my brother Christopher, which is why I wanted to go there originally.
Right. So
I grew up watching him play tennis, and I started playing at around 8 or 9 years old, not very seriously, but just kind of like group lessons, like with Jimbo a little bit. Jimbo had me a little bit in Pee-wees, like, tossing the foam ball at me. So I had some of those fundamentals, but kind of fell off the map for a few years. So I picked it back up more seriously, probably around 10 or 11. And from there, all day, every day. It started off with private lessons in the morning, and then we'd go home and do our schoolwork, and then back for group lessons in the afternoon. You know, and as you get older, when you're getting more and more serious, you're going to more serious coaches. So I started getting some really serious ones that were more like drill sergeants, you know, but like run 3 miles before the lesson starts kind, you know, like really intense stuff in the middle of summer. But I will say I really admire tennis players so much. There's such a discipline there that, to be fair, I don't feel like fully existed in the pickleball world yet. At the pro level, definitely, but, you know, casual playing, that just doesn't exist there. And but in order to be a good tennis player, you really have to put in the time, and you guys know that, the time and effort. So that's something that my brother and I did very heavily for several years, and loved it. It was our life. And I think by the time I hit college age, I just kind of burned out, because I had the opportunity to go and play for college teams. But when you've been playing so long and you're at that age, I don't know, I think it's easy to kind of burn out and just be kind of over it. And so that's what happened there. And so I stopped playing around 17, and I literally didn't pick up a racket but like twice until, well, really just a couple months ago. But
really?
So yeah, like I hadn't played at all. I mean, a couple times I picked it up, but when I didn't have friends that played, so it's not like I can be like, you know, to my friends that I have or someone I'm dating, like, hey, let's go play tennis. Like, you can't do that. So I didn't have anyone to play with, and my younger brother, who started playing pickleball before me, introduced me to pickleball, and at first I hated it.
Really?
Oh yeah, I hated it. I was so embarrassed by it. But really, don't most tennis players, don't they have that reaction at first? I mean, I kind of feel like they do.
Yeah,
So,
I guess I see what you're saying. They feel like, well, this is a cousin sport and it's smaller court, so I'm not really running. So maybe they see it as a step down, but then they seem to fall in love with it when they see the quick action and the touch and the bang bang.
Yeah, and that's what happened. My brother found it at a church gym here in Hot Springs, and he stumbled upon it when he was going to play basketball one day, and there was conflict. And he begged me to come out, so I came out and watched at this church gym, and I hated it, and I was like so embarrassed, and I was like, dude, we like literally dedicated years of our life to perfecting like the game of tennis, and you're throwing it away for this. Like, how dare you? Like, this is so ridiculous. And that was my stance on it very firmly for about a year. I refused to pick up a paddle. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. But then he was in a tournament at one of our tennis facilities up in Little Rock. And I don't know if it was that it was outdoor or it was on a real tennis court or what it was, but I went out there, and I think it was really reminiscent of like a junior tennis tournament, which really is so, that's what is nostalgic for me. Like, looking back at that youth, like the youth tennis, it was the junior tournaments. You know, you're meeting up with your friends every weekend. You're seeing each other every weekend. You might not go to the same schools or anything, but you're meeting up, you're playing cards in between your matches. Like, that's what it was. And so I think pickleball has really figured out how to accomplish that, like, social community aspect that didn't translate over into adult tennis. I didn't watch it. And I think you find that more in like leagues than you do like adult tennis tournaments. So anyways, I went and I watched him at this tournament. I fell in love with watching it, and I was like, okay, it's on a tennis court, so I can go out and it'll feel like tennis a little bit. I picked up a paddle. I played a little bit with him in between some of his games, and I fell in love. And then from then on, this was a year ago. This was last April, I think. So then from there, I got hooked, and the rest is history. So
you got hooked, and I'm with you. I want to just kind of echo your point that the social, that amazing blend of social and competitive of pickleball outweighs the lack of serving. And I know Craig is a huge server, and the thing that I felt was missing, I was okay with the smaller court. I was like, gosh, you don't get to serve. Like, it's such an equalizer that everybody serves, underarmed or side or whatever. So for me, that was, I identify with you. That was a little disappointing, but then you get used to it and you understand all these other positives about it. Hey, tell us about, you just mentioned not that long ago you fell in love with pickleball. Yeah. How did you get into the industry of pickleball? And now we're kind of moving in to the second set, so I'm going to take a quick break. Craig, who is this set brought to you by?
Are we in the second?
Well, first, let's say the first was brought to us by.
First was brought to us by Conga Sports. That's the first green tennis network. But it also could be pickleball. We're going to have to get them over into the pickleball network.
They really do. I guess I guested on one of his podcasts. That's the great Rich Nair, who writes Tennis Club Business, and it really addresses racket sports in general. And one of the points that I learned from him as a guy who was, at the time I was getting certified as a pickleball professional, and I was starting to play a little bit too, not as much as this guy, but playing more. And one of the points that he and another panelist made was that pickleball players are preferring to buy things from pickleball companies rather than the a paddle that's made by a tennis company or some other company. And that, I thought, maybe that's a good segue into how you got into Vulcan and how committed Vulcan is to being a pickleball brand.
Yeah. So I literally fell into it because I was not looking necessarily to get into it. Vulcan is based here in Hot Springs. That's where our headquarters are. And our CEO, Vince, is so intentional about being involved in the community. And because of that, one of the cool things he did is build community courts at our headquarters, which is open to the public 24/7, lights. It's beautiful. And so a lot of like the open play nights were at these local courts, and my little brother, that's where he played. And we have the nights like 3, 5 and up, and our beginner night and open play night. And so as I had played for a couple months, because when you play tennis, you're really coming in at 3-5. I mean, once you get the scoring down and once you just play a couple times, like you don't have to start at that beginner night. So because of that, I could start at the 3-5 and up night. And I started to meet a lot of the people that work at Vulcan.
Yes.
And one was Vince, the CEO. And again, I wasn't looking for a job, but Brandon Nugent, who was the sales manager at Vulcan at the time, he accepted a new position last fall, at the end of the fall. And so they were looking for someone to replace him. And one of the things that Dusty, who is my boss and the VP of marketing, who is actually he was my doubles partner at the time, before I had any affiliation with like the company Vulcan. He and I had played a couple tournaments together. And so we were buddies. And he was like, can you recommend anyone? Because there's kind of the paradox of, do you want somebody that knows business and sales that you have to teach pickleball to, or do you want someone that knows pickleball that you can kind of teach some sales and business to? Because pickleball is so new, Tanner's is our parent company, and that's all baseball. And so there's a massive business there that already has this infrastructure in place. But pickleball, like, it's easy to find a baseball guy, but it's hard to find someone that just like knows pickleball because it's so new and so fresh. And so one of my other doubles partners, Mike Pyatt, who is now our GM, I was like, what about Mike? Like, he and Brandon are buddies. Like, everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. Like, he's pickleball already. Like, And so they were like, oh, that's a cool idea. So they bring Mike in and they offer him the GM position, and he accepts that. And one day, as I'm talking to Vince out on the court when we were playing about this, he was like, yeah, like, I love Mike. I'm so glad that you sent him our way. If you know anyone else, we're hiring. And I jokingly said, because at the time I'd taken a year off work and I was like working from home doing some subcontracting stuff. I jokingly said, I was like, well, actually, I'm going to interview at this real estate company. And he was like, are you serious? He was like, come in and see us. And it was like a joke. Like, I mean, I was looking because I was ready to get out of the house, but I wasn't thinking about working in the sports industry. And so then Dusty texted me, who was the VP there, who was my doubles partner. He's texted me the next day. He was like, hey, can you come in like this afternoon? I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, Vince, you and Vince talked. And I was like, oh yeah, like that was a joke though.
You were just...
And he was like, yeah, like it was just in passing. It was a joke. And he was like, okay, yeah. So like come in this afternoon. And I was like, okay. So I didn't even know, like I had no idea what they were looking for, what they were hiring for. And so I come in, and what they were looking for was somebody to manage the customer service department on the baseball side.
I see.
So, and that's kind of a little bit my background. My family owns a home improvement company. And so I was managing the office, and I'd worked there for years before I took some time off, and a lot of customer service and like a lot of sales background, because, you know, my dad started this company 40 years ago, and the large emphasis was on sales. And so they offered me this position in their customer service, but on the baseball side. And so I was like, okay, well, like, I mean, both of my doubles partners work here. The graphics designer who does all of our paddles, I'm friends with him. He plays pickleball. He works here. Jenna, our digital marketing manager, I know her, you know, like she's been in Hot Springs for years. I've played pickleball with her. So I was like, no brainer, just, you know, accept it. So I accepted the position, and I was at my desk for about 3 days and staring at a screen and a lot of spreadsheets and numbers. And I was like, this is one of the reasons I left my family's company. Like, I just can't do this. So I went up and I talked to Dusty, and I was like, I'm so thankful for this. Like, I appreciate it, but I'm ready in life to do something that I enjoy. So if you have a spot on the pickleball side of things, I would love that. And if not, no hard feelings. I'll wait until we can get someone trained and you can find a replacement. And then, you know, I'll move on. And he was like, okay, let me talk to our COO and our CEO and see what we can do. And so the next day he got back with me, and he was like, we really want you here. We need to find someone to replace you. Cause this was in the middle of baseball season too, like the winter. And so we had like massive Walmart orders and Dick's Sporting Goods and Academy. So our warehouse is slammed. And so, he was like, help us get through this really busy baseball season in the winter. We're going to find you a replacement, and then we're going to bring you over to pickleball. And I don't know what that position is going to be, but we want you here. So fast forward through like several months of trying to find a replacement and getting through baseball season. And so finally it's getting to the time where I can start to transition, and they're like, we want you to be a content manager, because Jenna, who is our digital marketing extraordinaire, she's amazing. She has so much on her plate. And one of the things that would be cool is if we can send someone out in the field and get content and get pictures and kind of help her and develop some of this stuff. And I was like, great. So I was hired as the content manager on the pickleball side. And that was great. But the problem with that, as we touched on earlier, is I'm like an 80-year-old at heart. And so I didn't even have TikTok downloaded on my phone. Like my phone was ancient because I refused to get a new one because I'm so sick of technology and I don't want all the new fancy things.
Funny.
And Dusty is like, you've got to get it together. Like, your phone is falling apart. And I'm like, ugh, I know, fine, I'll upgrade. So I do all the stuff to upgrade. And that was a joke. I didn't transition into the position that I'm in now because I'm so incompetent with technology, even though I am. But it's because Mike, who is our GM, like we needed help with a lot of processing. And I kind of got pulled, because he and I share an office space. I kind of got pulled into doing more stuff with him than I was actually doing with Jenna on the digital marketing side. And so as the months rolled on, I'm just doing more and more stuff with like business development and, you know, talking to these customers and vendors and clients. And a couple months ago, maybe not even, Vince, our CEO, and Dusty was like, why are you a content manager? You're literally doing nothing with content. And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, okay, we got to get you a new title because you don't do any of this. I was like, I know, that's what I've been saying, because it was a running joke in the office. Like, we'd laugh when we talked about the fact that I was a content manager, because I was managing and I hadn't updated my own profile picture in like 2 years. Like, I don't do anything. And so from there, Dusty, who again is our VP, he was like, oh, I've got it. He was like, you'll be the new business development director, because one of the things that I just naturally kind of started doing was I network really well, and I build these connections, and that's how I know Craig is from David Redding here in Arkansas. He directed Craig, and then I know. Then Craig was like sending me to all these other people, and that's how I got with Curtis. And so just these things that kind of naturally evolved. And all of this from a home improvement background for years. And yeah, here I am. It's kind of crazy. I wasn't looking for it, but it's been fun. And Vulcan is an amazing company, and it's something that I enjoy. And I mean, I get to product test and
You do.
watch my desk. So what's not to love? So yeah.
That's fantastic. Hey, we'll get back to product in a moment or two, but on the this is the second set, and we talk about current projects, which you've done a great job with, and future projects. Part of business development, like you said, networking, relationships, culture. Tanner's is the parent company, Vulcan Pickleball. And there's another brand called Paddle Candy, and that's making waves because of the creative graphics and great look. I understand your company has reached out to very high-profile people like Ellen DeGeneres, and you've gotten some traction in that world. To me, that is a big deal in business development. So if you could, talk a little bit about that and the future of that for you and your company.
Yeah, so Paddle Candy was kind of developed as this whimsical, artistic brand that focused not only on having a quality paddle, but really being able to express a different personality. Because, we know from the tennis world, there's I don't want to say boundaries, but it's more of a sophisticated, like intentional look in tennis. It's a little bit more rigid, maybe. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah,
I love tennis, but you don't.
It's this look. It's this brand. It's things like a collared shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a ton of flexibility or like a fun, whimsical outlet in tennis, I would say, in a lot of ways. And so Vince, our CEO, who also comes from tennis, and our graphic designer, Ricky, they wanted to kind of create kind of some art, really, and using a quality paddle and quality design and kind of creating something that was more fun than what your average pickleball paddle might be. Because a lot of these pickleball paddles, our only point of reference is like another racket sport. So like tennis or racquetball or ping pong. So a lot of the influence early on was from these other, sports. And so it was kind of groundbreaking. And what they've done is just creating something that is cool to look at and pretty. And that was really the emphasis at first. And so one of the first paddles that was developed in this line, though, before we came out with the Freak Show line in the Pickleball brand, or in the Paddle Candy brand, was a gorilla and then a sea turtle paddle that Ellen DeGeneres and her show picked up, that we partnered with because of the Ellen Foundation. And so any purchase that of the gorilla we don't have anymore, but the sea turtle we do goes to the, oh gosh, I'm going to embarrass myself because I don't remember the name.
It's a conservation fund, right?
Yeah, yes, and I can't remember which one it is. It's in North Carolina, I believe. Yeah. Yes, but it's a wildlife and conservation center. And so Ellen, because she has her Ellen Foundation, that is a passion project of hers. And so we partnered on that because of she and Portia's interest in those kinds of things. And that's where Paddle Candy was kind of born. And then from there, it was developed into just a more fun and artistic outlet. But the gorilla and the sea turtle were the first two in the line, and we still have the sea turtle. And then from there, we went to the Sugar Skull. And at the time, that's when we were kind of bringing Daniel De La Rosa, who is massive in the racquetball world.
Love that guy. We absolutely loved interviewing him. He was, like you said, #1 in the world in racquetball. What a personality. And he has been playing with Vulcan for 3-4 years, right?
Yeah. And so at the time that we're developing Sugar Skull, we're transitioning Daniel into Paddle Candy. And so he is our Paddle Candy pro now, and he plays with Sugar Skull. In fact, we have a paddle release coming out in just a couple days, a different colorway of the paddle that he plays with now, which is his signature paddle, and it's beautiful. And the whole brand is supposed to be fun and youthful and energetic, and I think that we've tackled that really well and kind of given a little bit of a breath of fresh air into paddle design. and we'll be coming out with more stuff. Again, it's really cool because all of this is the brainchild of Ricky Lacefield, who's our graphic designer, and Vince Signorelli. They have a whole vision board in the graphics design office with stuff that they'll just come in and tack up on the wall just to kind of like develop new things and new ideas for these paddles. And it's all about being fun and beautiful and lighthearted. And we brought on 2 micro influencers. We call our Paddle Candy Power Couple, and you can look them up on social media.
Right.
Their name is Melody and Ethan, and they completely embody what the vision of Paddle Candy is. They're so fun. You can look them up. They're energetic. They're always on adventures, and they have a great presence on social media. And so that's just another way to kind of, I don't know, speak to a different audience in pickleball.
Yeah, just for the folks at home, a tiny, tiny look at these two, and the fun look and the colors, and like you said, functional, beautiful, and a youthful spirit about it.
Totally, and they're great pickleball players too. Melody's actually my doubles partner.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah,
Lucia, a lot of people consider a senior power couple for Depends underwear. So just want to give you that bit of information.
Hey, that just depends on what you've had to drink that morning. Dad joke number 4.
Woo-hoo, bada bing, bada boom. Sorry, I'll get off.
That's fun. Oh, it's good. So, yeah, the relationships like that and the DeGeneres thing, that's tremendous. I want to get back to product in one more minute, but I want to talk a little bit about in marketing, in business. Sometimes we talk about market share, and coming from tennis like you did, there are 5 or 10 prominent worldwide, global, excellent tennis brands, and we kind of know what is 1, 2, and 3, and then the 4th biggest in market share, and then the 3 or 4 under that. In pickleball, there are so many now making paddles. How are you staying at the front of everything? And if you'd like, that's a time to talk about relationships. People like De La Rosa, Alex, Jay Devier, but also the product itself. I realize you're not on the product management or engineering side, but I know you know a lot about how these things are made. Basically, what separates Vulcan from some of the others, and what is an okay paddle and a great paddle like what you're making?
So, awesome questions. The fact that the market is kind of getting diluted, like you said, with just all of these companies, they're just like coming on the scene out of nowhere.
Yep.
Because they've noticed that pickleball is exploding. So obviously you want to jump on that wagon, and I get that. And that's been something that we at Vulcan have been talking about. We've got these companies coming in and diluting. There's the reality of that. And as any company, you don't want to fall by the wayside and kind of lose your seat at the table. But there's also the reality that most of these brands are going to end up falling away. They're not going to be able to maintain any kind of credibility. And that's not even necessarily because they're not making a good paddle, because they may be, but we see that in every sport. Like, you don't have 300 different, manufacturers of a quality product. Like, you just don't. You don't even have 30 in most cases, and like you said, with tennis, you've got those, top 10, 15 brands, whatever, that everybody knows and trusts and goes to. And so Vulcan was really lucky to be one of the first. Selkirk has been around forever. They've really come on the scene in the past 15-ish years. And they've been doing it the longest. And so, credit where credit is due in that respect, totally. And you've got these other companies like Head and Wilson that are amazing, tennis companies. And I mean, I play with Head. That's all day long. Like, I love them for tennis, but the reality is they haven't cracked the pickleball paddle yet. And maybe they won't. And in a sense, I'm okay with that, because they're killing it in tennis. Like, they know what they're doing. Stick with tennis. Like, and it doesn't mean that there's not a seat at the table for them in pickleball, but it doesn't have to be done either. Like, they don't have to be there because they have tennis and they're doing it so well. I think one of the things that sets Vulcan apart, apart from the fact that we were one of the first, once, Vince started to notice pickleball before it exploded, he was there developing these paddles and figuring out how to build this company. So apart from the fact that we've been around for a while before the pickleball boom really hit, we're really intentional about choosing amazing pros like Jay and Tyler Loong and Daniel. And that helps us to develop paddles that really good players want to play with. And I think that that's important. We're not just putting out paddles that anybody wants to play with. We're putting out paddles that the top 10 players in the world want to play with. And I think that's really important. And not just that we're making paddles for them, but we're going to them and asking them to help us develop our equipment, help us develop these new paddles and tell us what you want, tell us what you need as your game is evolving, because they're the ones that are leading the pack. I mean, really, we're all going to be, they're the ones that are causing pickleball to evolve, the style of play that these pros have and what they want. And the fact that texture has come on the scene, all of a sudden, and they want more texture and they want this and that. We want the top players so that we can stay on top of the manufacturing game. We want them to be able to communicate with us and for us to give them what they want, because what they want is going to end up being what the masses want too.
That makes sense.
And so I think that's really important. And that's been something that our CEO has done so well, because I've only been there for a year, but our team has created something so special in that. The great relationships with these pros and just great relationships in general. I mean, we have Alex Hamner, who is, a Hall of Famer. She's an icon in the pickleball world. She's like the first lady of pickleball.
Yeah. And you two are really tight.
I mean, she's my girl. Yeah. I met her for the first time when we were in Naples this spring, and it was actually over my birthday in April, and she was like giving me Bloody Marys for my birthday, like while I'm watching pickleball, and I'm like, no, stop, please give me another one, okay?
Enough. Cut me off. All right, one more.
Exactly. No, she's amazing. And I was told before I met her from everyone, at headquarters, they're like, Alex is amazing, you're going to love her. And I'm like, yeah, she's going to be great. Yeah, she's going to be a nice lady. But no, she's so cool. She's like the kind of girl that you want to get drinks with and like gossip with, and then like take some shots and then like go walk on the beach. Like, she's amazing. She's so fun. And she's so goofy, and just watching her interaction though with all these players. I mean, the top players in the world that are down there at this tournament that I'm seeing for the first time, like, they're coming up to her. They're fangirling over Alex Hamner. Like, it was just so incredible to watch. So yeah, she's an icon, and having people like that on our team, I think, really speaks to the kind of company that we are, because we have some of the top players in the world and the most iconic players too, for a reason. And I think it says something that they choose us, because it's not that they aren't wanted by these other companies.
They are sought after for sure. Well, let's talk product. You mentioned the word texture. I'm very passionate about spinning the ball either this way or this way. And I remember when I was given 5 years ago a couple paddles that were so good looking. Black on black prototypes. The company will go nameless, but they play like crap compared to my bamboo cutting board in the kitchen, which plays like crap compared to a proper modern good paddle. And whatever company it is, what is it about the texture, and how do you do it? How much is too much? What's legal? What's not? And then maybe you can talk about the core and the materials and why these paddles are so much better than those two crappy free ones I got 5 years ago.
Yeah. So, how much is too much? That's like a question that we go back and forth with all the time. Because the reality is, at some point it's like, okay, guys, calm down. Yeah. Like, you're completely changing the game at this point. I am a little bit of a snob still, in the sense that I feel like if you have not figured out how to hit the ball with a stroke that can generate your own spin, then I kind of feel like you don't deserve to have that much spin yet.
Makes sense.
But that's from ground. So I'm still a little bit of a snob in that sense. But I do get that having some texture changes your game significantly, and especially in singles. And that's something that we're hearing from our pros. It's one thing to have a paddle with texture on it in doubles, but it is a complete game changer in singles. You really do need it, especially if you're playing against somebody that does have spin on the paddle, or texture on their paddle. You have to be able to compete. And so when you've got these paddles that have an extreme amount of texture on them, you've got to be able to generate that in return. So I think we're reaching the point where I can't imagine any more texture being added, being necessary. What the legal limit is right now. I hope we don't bump it up anymore. It's gotten bumped up because of some certain very high profile players needing that to be bumped up so that their paddles would pass. I'm going to not name anybody.
We know who you're talking about.
Please do. We won't tell anybody.
You're talking about aging professionals at the top level.
Some people that, no one's going to say no to right now. So that bar has kept getting pushed higher and higher. And I really hope that it stops now. Because it kind of just would be ridiculous. There are some of these paddles that are still prototypes that we've gotten our hands on from other brands, and even paddles of ours that we've gotten some texture on that technically are the legal limit. And it's almost like Velcro. That's how much it stops the ball almost, because there's so much there. And it's you don't need that much. If you can't, there's got to be a happy medium somewhere. And so I really hope that the level that we're at right now is as much as is going to be allowed. I don't think we need any more. So that's my take on that, which is kind of a little bit vague. Yeah. Because I'm not names or anything, but I don't think the legal limit right now, I think, is 42. And I'm really hoping that we don't go any higher than that.
Give the folks at home what that number means. The grit, the 42 means. Yeah. Give them the real deal.
So honestly, I don't know the exact details. I know that it's the average of different points on the paddle. And so the machine that is used to measure those different points, it's the average of all of those numbers combined on different points of the paddle. It's not like in sandpaper where you have your 200 grit and that's finer. It's not that, which is what I thought it was initially. So it's not that, but the legal limit is 42, and that's going to be kind of, for a point of reference, what if you got a Yola paddle or carbon, something like that. That's usually it's usually not that high. Many of the pros are pushing that limit, and they're in that 40 range. That's why some of them get their paddles taken recently, as I'm sure you've heard.
Yes.
So they're over 42, but I wish I could speak more to the details on that. Again, I do not know a lot of the technicals. I do know that we're in the process of being able to test ourselves just for quality assurance in our warehouse. That way, every paddle that goes out, we can ensure with the texture that we have is always going to pass no matter who gets it, whether it's a pro or it's your average, player on the court at your local community center. We want to make sure that everything is above board. And that's something that maybe has fallen by the wayside unintentionally with some other companies because it is hard to monitor. If you're, when you get your big batch from your factory, some of those paddles might not fall under that radar. And that's because you're mass producing paddles. So it does happen, when you have some things fly under the radar. And so on our end, we're going to do everything we can to ensure that every paddle that leaves our warehouse is going to be able to pass at any point. And so that's really important to us as far as the texture is concerned. We don't want to have any debacles like some other companies have dealt with. We want to make sure that everything that we do is going to pass and is respected across the board. We want to be one of those companies that is not pushing the boundaries that messes it up for everyone else. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We want to make sure. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're doing things the right way and creating a quality product that people can trust and get behind, and that's really important to us.
Speaking of quality product, let's dig a couple of millimeters below that textured surface. Dead spots, specks, quality carbon fiber. What's inside the paddle that we do not see? Unless we throw one and break one, which I haven't done. I've clearly done that with a tennis racket, but not with a paddle.
You haven't taken one apart yet? No?
I haven't dissected one.
Okay.
So it depends on what paddle. So the series that we've had the longest is our V500 series, and that's fiberglass. And that was before carbon fiber really came on the scene. You know, most paddles were being made that way with fiberglass. And the reality of the situation is many paddles are created equal when you're looking at the core, and that's just the truth. And it's ridiculous for any company to say otherwise. That's just the truth. The difference comes in how you're making it. And then as you get closer and closer to the surface, that starts to change.
I see.
But the core overall is usually pretty equal. Now the difference in notable differences are, like I said, as you get closer to the surface, the way that texture is applied, if there is texture, the way that the edge guard is applied, and the way that the different components are molded together is important. In our V500 series, like I said, those are fiberglass. They don't really have much texture on them. We were creating those before texture came on the scene. So, you know, it was among the paddles that didn't have that grit yet. And any paddle other than two companies that I could think of, you're going to experience dead spots. And that's just the reality. Eventually you're going to experience dead spots. It's not a tennis racket that is going to last you for 50 years and you can restring. I wish it was, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is finding a company that has a high emphasis on quality control and quality assurance and quality customer service. And that's really important to Vulcan. So we have a 1-year warranty on all of our products, and that includes dead spots. So if your edge guard is loose, if you've got chipping paint, if the enamel seems to be damaged, if your grip is, you know, the butt cap of the grip is loose, if there's any kind of breakage, if you're experiencing dead spots or you hear a rattle, immediately, as soon as you call us in and you could submit proof of purchase, your replacement paddle goes out right away. And so that's really important to us. And we understand that happens. I don't know if paddle companies will ever figure out how to create a paddle that doesn't have a dead spot. Like, I don't think with the way that it's made, I don't think that can be done with your traditional typical paddle. And the same with edge guards. Edge guards go loose over time. We have some really cool things coming out that I can't talk a lot about because we're in the process of patenting them and getting them approved, but they're really exciting. We're excited about them. And those things that we're working on will speak to loose edge guards and chipping and dead spots. And while those things will always probably be an issue with paddles, we've developed some really cool things that I think will increase the longevity of a paddle and not only, magnify the way that it plays and the quality of how it plays, but really give you a little bit more lifespan out of that paddle. And we'll always have that 1-year warranty because if anything happens to your paddle, we want to replace it. But we're also working really hard in figuring out how to eliminate any quality control issues. That's something that while I think that those dead spots and a loose edge guard will always eventually be an issue with the paddle, that doesn't mean that we're just like not trying to constantly improve what we have. Even our V500 series that's been around the longest, we're always trying to improve. We're always trying to figure out how our manufacturers can create a more quality product. And that's really important to us. We have some new things coming out. We have a new 900 series that's going to be dropping this fall. And that's really exciting because speaking to carbon fiber and just quality material in general, what we did in this 900 series is we were like, how can we get the highest quality product across the line, every element in the paddle? How can we put it into one paddle? Kind of like your luxury. paddle, the best of the best. Every ingredient, the way that this paddle is manufactured, every single thing about it is the best of the best, the highest quality that we could find. And so we're really excited about that. And again, we're still in a little bit of testing on that. Most of them have been approved. But those are going to be releasing pretty soon. And so I think as a consumer, when you're choosing your paddle, I will say objectively, the reality is you've got to play with the paddles.
Yeah.
You know, you could pick up a paddle, and as much as you want to like it, as pretty as it is, as much as you love the pro that plays with it, if you don't like the way it plays, then that's okay. You know, you try another one. So I think you have to play with your paddles, but I think you need to choose a company that has great customer service and is dedicated to constantly putting out quality products. And
Lucia,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we love the honesty and the culture and philosophy of your, not just a view of your whole company. And I wanted to get to, as we wind down this second set, I wanted to get to a very philosophical question, speaking of philosophy, from a great listener and a brilliant professional. That's Nick Smith. He asks, in her opinion, will paddle technology change so that technique change will be mandatory to be improved due to the spin of the ball? He's talking about the paddle grip or the grit, making it more like tennis in a sense, with the way strings can treat a tennis ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think yes, but I think that's also why I was saying I hope that we as a pickleball community and the governing bodies will put that ceiling on that texture, because I think if we go any higher, if we push that bar anymore, I think you are kind of almost playing with the fundamentals of pickleball. And what I mean with, like, we're playing with fire almost, because I do feel like you're almost creating a different game. And it is transitioning into tennis, especially in singles. And while I love tennis, I love the fact that pickleball is different. And I think if we continue to mess with it at the rate that we were going, I think that we are getting into some dangerous territory where we're really just tennis on a smaller court.
You may just lose people who appreciate the uniqueness and the difference of pickleball.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, I brought my older brother, who I mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
He's a tennis player. I was in Dallas last weekend. We were just on a little long weekend getaway. And I brought him to play tennis for the first time at Brookhaven with Ben Paquette, at Ben Paquette's club. He got us in, and he's amazing. But anyways, we introduced it to him for the first time, and he plays tennis regularly, and he kind of made fun of it himself. But so I got him out there with Jay Duvier's paddle, actually.
Unbelievable.
And, so we got him into it a little bit, and the first day we played, we'd only planned on playing that one day. He was like, yeah, it's fun. I like it. And by the end of that day, he was like, okay, let's go back tomorrow. And so we get out there tomorrow, and by this, he's got the fundamentals of it down. And because he's a tennis player, he could pick it up really quickly.
Sure.
And at the end of that day playing, he was like, why is it so much more fun than tennis?
Wow.
And I was like, I mean, I don't know, but it is in many ways. And he was like, you know what it is? It's because it's so unpredictable. And he's really right. Apart from the fact that pickleball is an equalizer, and you can get out there with a new player, an advanced player, your grandpa, and your, toddler, and you can all have a fun game on the court. Apart from that aspect, the way that the ball is reacting to the paddle, and the way that you can't fully control all of the spin and exactly what's going to happen to it, I think it creates a style of play that you kind of don't always know what's going to happen. And I think that there's a uniqueness to that. And there's